Hello there, blood and skull enthusiasts. I'm your boy Swissley, and I'm here to talk to you about World Eaters today. I am super excited to be playing back into World Eaters. Something I've been thinking about for a while. I had my first game with them yesterday on stream. I'll put the link in chat so you can see. I made tons of mistakes. It was a lot of fun though, but managed to eke out the wins. I'm quite happy with that. But I'm on a bit of a journey. I think I'm going to take these to Coventry, which is a 3-day event at the end of October. So I'm going to be sharing with you my journey into getting ready for that event. So that's going to be super fun. That's going to include like what matchups I'm trying to prepare for, all the different lists, looking at the stats and seeing what's working, what our tough matchups are, what my plans are for that matchup. And yeah, so that'd be pretty cool. I'll try and do as many of these videos as possible, but you know, it is what it is. Cool. But for today, what I really wanted to look at was with you guys was to look at some of the most successful lists out there and get some inspiration for what's working. So come on this little ride with me and see what we can get and what we can glean from a lot of these lists. All right, enough of me. Let's get on with the lists. Boom. All right, so the first one we have here is Lewis Benton Core. So Lewis, oops, there we go. Lewis basically has this great list, and this was a team tournament. So what I've done is I've decided to look at a couple of team tournament lists here to get an idea of what people think the armies are good at. Because obviously you build the list for teams and you kind of choose your matchups, so you can see what you think World Eaters are really good at based on what people choose to run into. So Lewis was at the Gateway Open team tournament. He took Angron, Lord of Vicaris, and a Juggerlord. There was no enhancement on the Juggerlord. There's 10 Jackals here, 3 8-bound, 2 times 3 Exalted 8-bound, 6 Exalted 8-bound, Lord of Skulls, and 2 Spawn. So this is similar to what I played probably like February, March time when I was last playing World Eaters. I loved the Lord of Skulls. It was so much fun. And it is really interesting because it is quite good. So every unit you kill with a Lord of Skulls, you can add or subtract one to the blessing dice that you roll, but you can only do that once. You can't just like keep pop over and over again. But it helps you get things like Angron back or making sure you get the advance and charge off, which we all know is super important within World Eaters. It has so much damage 3 shooting, which is great. However, if one is to look to the future, the word on the street is lots more like Dark Angels, Deathwing Knights in tables. You know, John Lennon presents a list and then people play that list because it is good. Damage 3 into -1 damage, 3 wound models feels really stinky. So that makes me a little bit nervous, I suppose. But it's one of the issues we have, and a lot of combat armies have actually, is just so much damage to fight, so much damage to combat, which goes to damage 1, obviously. And then, so actually damage 3 doesn't sound that bad, right? So maybe it's a vibe. We've got a strike and sweep profiles too, which are pretty good for a 450 point model. Are they that good? They're all right. They're all right. It's good to have the options. T13 with 24 wounds. That all sounds fantastic. Here's the downside. It's 450 points. It's a lot. You could fit a lot in your army for that. It's movement 8, which, believe me, as a Tyranid main, I suppose, movement 8 monsters and vehicles are kind of just frustrating because you want to get them into the battle. Yes, sure, you can advance and charge up the battlefield, but you can't advance and shoot up the battlefield. So you definitely want to make sure that the Lord of Skulls is activating as many times as possible, especially in an army where we don't have a great deal of shooting. As well, sure, it's got T13 and sure, it's 24 wounds, but it has a 3-up armor save, which is at the point where things like with no AP and lethal hits are going to just be annoying. And there's loads of things out there that do that kind of stuff, thinking guard and what have you. And then you go, okay, well, what's its invul? And it's like, if it's got a 4-up invul, I'm loving it. But no, it doesn't. It has a 5-up invul. So, not great. You can stick the 6-up. Feel no pain on it, but at that point, you know, it will take a few activations to kill it, but it is absolutely killable. So that's the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous with it. It's very tough for 450 points. I think it's very terrain dependent. I think GW map's quite nice because you can just taunt to terrain and just shoot through them. If you think of LGT or UKTC terrain, you've got the big L's which don't have a base, which means you have to You know, it's not as usable, not as friendly, I suppose, to that ability. There's no way to go through walls with a Corn Lord of Skulls either, like you would have in Knights or some Tyranid builds. So for me, I would love to play one. I'm just not totally stoked on that just yet. I'll probably get one out in my practice games just to see if I'm totally talking rubbish. I'm very keen to see how the data slate pans out, right? Because if the data slate comes out and suddenly it's not Death Wing Knights, it's some other threat that the Corn Lord of Skulls absolutely mullers, then let's see what happens. Cool. Well, let's move on. Oh, sorry. Let's look at Lewis's run here. So he absolutely, I mean, I think he had probably almost the perfect tournament. He went into Shield Host Custodians and 20 owed them. He went into Cult of Speed that had 2 planes and 19 won them. He went into an all fighty Blood Angels list and 20 owed them. You know, it's a fun list, fun matchup that, because you've got the fight and death ability. You've got all the different, if the units are led by characters, you can get extra benefits to wound, etc., etc. Like, it's very, very nice. I'd love to play that matchup. It's one of the things I'm looking forward to. Now that I'm playing Worldies again. However, the new book for Blood Angels, we'll see if it's just as powerful or not. I don't think it is. Then I went into a Demons player that just said list unavailable, so I can't tell you anything about that, but he 20 0'd it. And then he went into a pretty strong Drakari list and 20 0'd that as well. Apparently Drakari is a really good matchup for us, so I'm looking forward to playing that. I'm actually playing Drakari tonight, so we'll see how that goes. So well done to Lewis here. Very interesting matchup, very interesting event and list with that Corn Lord of Skulls. All right, let's go on to the next one. If I can move this across. Boom. Right, Josh Wilson was at the same event. He also went 5-0, and his list was slightly different. So he had Angron, the Lord of Makatis, a Juggerlord with Helm of Brazen Ire for half damage. Very nice. 10 Jackals, 3 8-bound, 2 times 3 Exalted 8-bound, 6 Exalted 8-bound, 3 times 2 Spawn, and 2 Forge Fiend with Ectoplasma. So this is kind of, I suppose, similar to what I was playing as well. After I dropped the Corn Lord of Skulls earlier the year, in favour of Forge Fiends. I know, so I was kind of led by Jack Harpster's build on World Eaters back then, and he went from Lord of Skulls to the Forge Fiends as well. And I think I prefer the Forge Fiends. The reason being is I do think you need some shooting in World Eaters. Sorry, I know, sacrilege, I've just lost half my audience. But you have to make sure your opponent is not just taking liberties in their deployment. If you've got no shooting, they can just deploy where they like, they can mess around. But if you've got shooting, it makes them hide, it makes them take less than optimal decisions on their behalf. The other thing with Forge Fiends that I really like is that they cause that battle shock. So as soon as you've been hit by a World Eaters Forge Fiend, you have to then take a battle shock test. The awesome thing about that really overall is it can turn off things like stratagems to -1 damage, -1 to wound, -1 to hit or whatever. Fight on death, some armies have. All that just goes straight in the bin. You go, okay, I feel safe murdering this unit now. So it's very, very good. It doesn't happen all the time. Believe me, I'm a Tyranid player. I know that battle shocks don't happen all the time, but it just gives you that chance. What else have we got? We've got the Juggerlord with the Helm of Brazen Ire. So this is quite an interesting one. So a lot of armies, especially combat armies, have damage 2. So when you half that to damage 1 on an 8 wound model that's toughness 8 with a 2 up armors and 4 up invuln, it becomes really difficult to kill it. You know, even damage 2 shooting is going to have a hard time with it. But I'm thinking about what's it doing in the list, right? It's got 12 attacks in total, but it's only AP1. So yes, it can kill some stuff. It's a bit like a couple of there's like 3 Corn Berserkers in a trench coat maybe, but they're damage 2, so that's quite nice. I wonder if this is some kind of action used, like doing things like actions or screening out and then becoming a late game troublemaker. One of the other things I thought about, maybe rapid ingress it and attack your opponent's home objective. That seems quite nice because it's so fast. So yeah, really interesting decision there. Again, not played with the Juggerlord before, so keen to try that. Who did Josh go into? Well, he went into a Battle Shock Spam Synaptic Nexus and then 18 to that, so a good win there. He went into Inner Circle. It must be 20-0 or 19-1. I must have made a mistake on that one. But either way, a strong win for Josh there. Again, supposedly a difficult matchup. This is also supposed to be 30 Gene Stealers in Vanguard Onslaught, and that was a 15-5. So again, a good win, and that could go either way because you've got all those Gene Stealers. If they get there and you don't have Fight on Death or something like that, it can be a real pickle for you. He then went into Warhorde with Gazgul and some Warbikes and 20 odd that, and then went into an absolute legend. I'm going to salute this person now who took Fellhammer to a team tournament. I salute you, brother. He still got 20 odd though. So again, really strong performance by Josh here. Well done to him. All right, let's get on to that next one. We are looking at Emil Sodholm's list. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Sodholm. He was at Viking Games, War of the Nine Realms. This list is super simple and I really like it. I don't want to know lots of data sheets. I like the story of Noah's Ark, but I wish things went in 3s instead of 2s. He's got Angron, 10 Jackals, and a 3x3 8-bound, 3x3 Exalted 8-bound, 3x2 Spawn, and 3x Forge Fiends with Ectoplasma. Hey, sometimes you just don't want to learn that many data sheets, right? You just want to take all the good stuff all the time, and I can appreciate that. I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, I think this is an interesting list. It's got a lot of the stuff we've already spoke about. One of the things that I did take a lot of was a 6-man block of Exalted 8-bound. It seems like a lot of lists are moving towards smaller units of Exalted 8-bound. And even 3x3 8-bound, and we'll talk about Brian Doherty's list in a bit. But the 3-man Exalted 8-bound interests me. Again, not really tried them in spam. I did have a couple and then a 6-man earlier in the year. But I kind of relied on that 6-man, man. That was my big brick. That was one of my hammers. I feel a little bit like anxious about dropping that in favour of 2 3-mans. I suppose some of them are probably rapid ingressing in, or one of them will be rapid ingressing in perhaps. So really interesting to see. Maybe something to give a go. His run was a combined arms. Oh, and sorry, one thing to add here. I think this was on WTC terrain, given it's WTC scoring and it's in Europe, which is really interesting when you think about all this MSU. It's much easier to hide all this MSU on that terrain set. On GW, I don't think it's as easy because you've got less further up the board staging points. You're a little bit further back, so it's not that great, and it's easier to get angles. WTC, I think there's a lot more hidey spots for these little units. His run here was combined arms admech list, 20 odd that. He then went into a pretty much all melee Slaanesh Demons list, 15-5 that, which again, like 2 Keepers of Secrets in that list. It didn't look very pleasant to play or a pleasant matchup, but he went into it and smashed it. He went into another Cult of Speed list. Now, this Cult of Speed player said, hey, you've got some planes in your list. Lewis Benton Core's opponent. I'm going to take 4. Hold my beer. And again, a close-ish game here. 13-7 is not like a tanking. That's a close-ish game. We then went into a heavy mech and Rotigus Death Guard army. Now, I'm told Death Guard's a difficult matchup for us because of all the debuffs they can give you. I'm keen to play that matchup. And it shows here in a sense, Emil only won 11-9, so a close game, the closest game he had. And then he went into a very strong looking Bringers of Flame list and 20 order in round 5. That's awesome. Like, I've played a lot of Bringers of Flame recently with my Tyranids, and it's not an easy matchup, but to be able to just get in there and just tank people seems pretty exciting, and I'm very excited to do that, if that's a characteristic of World Eaters. All right, let's get in the next one. We have Tom Mitchell. I've put this one in. It's a UK event, so I'm a little bit biased, okay? But Tom Mitchell here, Winchester GT. I don't think he went 5-0. He lost his last game into a very good opponent. But this list is a little bit more diverse. We've got Angron, Khan, Lord Invocatus, and the Master of Executioners with Berserker Glyph. Now, this is someone I've heard about quite a lot. I didn't use him earlier in the edition, but very keen to use him. Going to be using him tonight, actually. So very excited to see how that goes. Then we've got, and again, this is interesting, lots of battle line. So 2x10 Jackals and 2x10 Berserkers. So obviously the Berserkers go with the characters, and then they go in 2 Rhinos, and then the other units we have are 3 8-bound, 6 Exalted 8-bound, and 3x2 Spawn. So we've got fewer units overall, but more models, so to speak, right? I think you could say that. Um, so yeah, an interesting list. This I'm leaning towards 2 times 10 berserkers because there's lots of threats out there that 2 times 10 berserkers and characters can deal with. Right? You look at Necrons, you can go out there, precision out some of their characters, then kill the rest of the unit. Um, or just cause issues for them overall, nullify their abilities. You've got Satans that you might want to kill with Berserkers. You've got like a lot of the cultists armies that are doing very well. There was one that won or came second at Nova and did well at another event afterwards. I've been listening to some of those podcasts recently, and terrifying if you don't have something like 10 Berserkers being able to like munch through some of those units. Things with low armor like Orcs or Green Tide, for example, or even Admech, which again is playing a very hoardy army at the moment. Stuff like that, you can throw in 2 units of Berserkers. It can really put a cat amongst the pigeons, which is quite nice. So yeah, one of the things I'm very much considering. So Tom's run was double Hecaton, triple bikes, lots of HQs, Votan. So yeah, I mean, this has all the things, and Tom has all the things to kind of deal with it, which is quite nice. And he won 98-38. He then went into a battle line heavy invasion fleet, so it's kind of an odd looking list, but he 138'd that. So again, another win, another strong win. He then went into Grey Knights, which I'm told is a difficult matchup. 94-65. So a solid win there, a solid win as well. And then he went into a Death Guard army without Morty, but loads of characters, loads of vehicles, and 30 cultists, I believe. And that, again, was a strong win, 73-33. I hear this is a hard matchup. And then the only loss that Tom had to endure was against a very good player, Martin Cooper, who plays guard in the area. He comes up and terrorizes lots of GTs in the area, and the amount of times I've seen him in finals of events with this list or a similar list to this is plenty, and he always does very well. Tom lost 63-100, and there's absolutely no shame in that. Well done, Tom, for that 4-1. Next time we'll get him, mate. All right, let's look at the last list we're going to look at today. Is Brian Doherty's Arch City GT. So this is from like 6 weeks ago, but I think it's interesting because of the final inclusion in the list. So we've got Angron, Lord of Incars, Mo with Berserker Glyphs. So all sounding nice. All things that are kind of making me go, yeah, I like these things. 2x10 Jackals. Don't know if 2x10 is where I want to go, but definitely Jackals. All lists have Jackals, so they must be good. Sticky in your home objective, etc. We've then got 10 Berserkers to go with Mo. And then we've got the Rhino that they all go in. And then we've got 3x3 8-bound, which Brian Doherty, if you don't watch the Red Path, of course you do, you're on YouTube and you play World Eaters, you've definitely listened to the Red Path before. Brian was singing the praises of 3x3 8-bound, so again, giving that a go tonight. We've then got 3 Exalted 8-bound, so we've got the small unit, throw it into something, make sure it can't fall back, perhaps. And then we have 10 Terminators. So Terminators are really interesting. We've seen the captain of the WTC team take 30 Terminators, which a lot of people were like, oh, is that a thing? It did okay by all accounts, from what I'm hearing. But Brian on the Red Path podcast was talking about just 1 unit of 10 is the way forward, guys. 1 unit of 10. That's what he was suggesting, so I'm giving that a go. What I like about it is a 2-up armor, and if you put them in cover, it's a 2-up armor in cover, which is just something we don't have, right? If you can see a World Eaters unit, you've got a good chance of killing him, even with the Feel No Pain. Again, something I like about Exalted is you have the 5-up Feel No Pain, not a 6-up. But a 2-up armor, 4-up Invuln, and a 6-up Feel No Pain doesn't feel that bad overall. So yeah, it can be super. It feels like it's super strong, and it diversifies our defensive profiles. The Berserker Glaive in this list as well is really good. One of the things that this list has lots of is damage 2, right? The 8-bound, the Exalted 8-bound, Terminators, Berserkers is damage 1, Lord of Acatus is damage 2, Angron is damage whatever you like. That's a lot of damage 2. There's not much damage 3. And more with the Berserker Glaive definitely gives that again. And then he adds Dev Wounds to it, which is really good. He has Fight First with his unit to it, which is very good. You can precision characters, which is very good. So yeah, I do feel more with the Berserker Glaive being quite cool. And it definitely, with this list, what I like about it is it adds something totally different to the list. Well, I say totally different. Something it's lacking. Let's say that. Brian's run was a cool sounding pack bound zealots list, but a 112 seems like, I think Brian talks about this list. I think the chap hadn't had experience into World Eaters before. And that's the way that goes. A good looking BA list, Blood Angels list with 2 Vindicators, so interesting inclusion. 79.44, so again, a good win for Brian. T-Suns with 10 Terminators. Now, T-Suns, right, really strong, obviously. 10 Terminators and Magnus in this list. That's a lot of points. And you surely losing a fair few Cabal points when you do that. And I think Brian talks about this game on the show as well, and the decisions that were made. And Brian just capitalised on a poor decision, I think, by his opponent and got an 87.44. And then he went into Folger's, I think that's how you pronounce his name, MSU Eldari list. Now, Folger was second place at LVO this year, so a really strong Eldari player. And there's no shame in losing 41.79 to him there. It's a really interesting list. If you do play Eldari, go and check that list out. And then Brian went into the Mirror. It was a similar list, but instead of the Terminators, he had Spawn and Exalted. And I think the Terminators really come in clutch here, with the -1 damage strat and things like that to help Brian take the win, 95.37. So again, another strong list there. I think this is really one that I'm trying tonight. So I'm excited to see how it goes. No Khan. I've just bought Khan, and I would like to try him in lists, but it feels like the Master of Execution is just that bit better. So here's the conundrums. Here's the questions I have in my head at the moment. Looking at these lists, the inspiration I've got. Looking at characters, it feels like Angron is a must-take. Everyone is doing well as Angron. I know that there's a non-Gron community out there, but man, he's so good. He's so good. I don't know if I'm using him properly. I think that's one of the things I'm going to learn over the next couple of months is how to use him. I've seen people yeet him straight forward. I very much like to keep him as a persistent threat. So my opponent has to really think about where they're going and what they're doing, because if they make a mistake and I get an easy charge from Angron, fantastic. So they tend to not make the mistake because they see that coming, but it makes them play unoptimally. Master of Execution sounds fantastic with the glaive. That should say damage 3. Apologies, it's not damage 4. With Dev Runes. So again, offers something that, the army has tons of damage to. Having damage 3 in Dev Runes feels awesome. I love Khan, but can you fit him in? Can you? Because you do need the Berserkers to go with them, really. I know you can chuck Khan out onto an objective like a Spawn and then see what happens. It's a good 35 points more, and it gives up Assassinate, which feels a bit dirty. And then Lord of Mikata seems to be the very takeable. I think the reason why I like him, again, is it makes my opponent have to do something they don't want to do, which is deploy a little bit further back, think about my threat ranges, etc., etc. So at the moment, I feel like Lord of Mikata, Mo, and Angron are my way forward. In terms of battle line, Jackals are in every list, so they're definitely going to be in, but are 2 units worth it? I'm not sure. Again, something I'm going to have to try. I've got a grey unit of Jackals here that are ready to be spray painted, so very keen to get them done. Been one of my favourite models to paint, actually. I know a lot of people moan about them, but I actually quite enjoy them. They're so angry. 10 Berserkers feels like great spot for Mo, but the package with a Rhino is 380 points. It's not cheap. So I think 1 is good. If you then take 2, so if you have 2 times 10 with Khan and everything and the 2 Rhinos, that comes to 735 points, which is an awful lot. And it really changes what the list kind of is doing. Perhaps a bit. I think it changes how you play a little bit. So I'm not sure if I want to go that way, but again, something to try. And then looking at other units, 8-bound are a must, it feels like. And a lot of people talking about 3x3. So we're going to give that a go and see. I always thought, I have in my head that Exalted 8-bound are so much better than 8-bound. But, maybe they're not. Maybe hitting on 3s is okay. Maybe you don't need the chain fist if you just +1 to wound and things like that, potentially. So we'll see. Exalted in 3s is enough, apparently. You don't necessarily need 6-man, so definitely something to consider with that. 10 Terminators is something I definitely want to try. I don't know if that's good. It feels like it's I mean, Dara on the red path was saying it feels like it's anti what the army's supposed to do. You know, if you've got loads of speed buffs like +2 move, advance and charge, you put it on a 5-inch move unit, feels like you're not getting the most out of it. Or conversely, maybe you are. Who knows? Definitely something to try. I also like the idea that the captain of Team Australia was talking about on his channel, which is Blood for the Blood God, or Blog for the Blood God. And he was talking about playing a bit more passively, and you leave the middle objectives open, and you can score later in the game. If your opponent moves into the middle, then you charge it with everything. If your opponent doesn't move into the middle, you just rapid ingress the Terminators onto the middle objectives, and you score your primary anyway, which is nice. It gives your opponent like a difficult dilemma. What do I do here? Again, making them play unoptimally. Another big question, and this question that I've actually put on the front of this video: do you even need shooting? We've seen Brian's list didn't have any shooting. I feel like yes, you do, and I feel like Forge Fiends are the answers. But again, we're going to try without it today. It's going to feel really weird playing without shooting tonight, but we're going to give it a go. I wonder how many grenades I can throw. As a Tyranid player, I will tank shock and grenade at any opportunity, just because I've never been able to do it before. And then finally, and I think this is a great way to end the show. Spawn are amazing, right? Spawn are so good. OC1, do actions, etc. There's a big conversation about Spawn or Jackals being better than each other. I quite like Spawn because your opponent, you will sleep on them. You just won't think they're good. Then all of a sudden, they'll go in and hit something with 1 AP and damage 2. That's not bad, right? It's pretty good. And they get a lot of attacks. Jackals are really cool in terms of like denying your opponent. So your opponent's got to fight first. You wrap them in Jackals, and then you put your 3 mana of Exalted or 8 bound at the edge of that unit, so that only a couple of them can fight the 8 bound, and everyone else has to fight the Jackals. So they fight first, and they kill some Jackals, and then you murder that unit. That feels really great. So it's just deciding which of the two I prefer. It feels like Spawn is where I'm at the moment, but we will see. And guys, that's it. A short one today. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll catch you next time, when I'll probably be looking at the meta, what our good matchups are, what our bad matchups are according to stat check. So watch out for that. Thanks for your time, guys. It's been really fun talking. And if you want to see more of this, put it in the chat. Put it in the comments below. Like and subscribe. All that good stuff. And I will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.